Ciao and benvenuti to Untold Italy. I'm Josie.
And I'm Katie, and we're here to help you plan your trip to Italy.
Between us, we have many years of travel experience, and we want to help you uncover your own, as yet untold stories and adventures in Italy.
Each episode, you'll hear practical advice, tips and ideas to help you plan your own trips to the magical land of history, stunning landscapes, and a whole lot of pasta.
We'll have interviews from experts and focus on local destinations and frequently asked questions about travel in Italy.
Thanks for listening and make sure to subscribe to our show.
Now let's get started on your regular dose of Bella Italia.
Ciao, welcome to episode 3 of Untold Italy, helping you plan your adventures in Italy.
We're going to take you to the beautiful Roma, the Eternal City, home to the Colosseum, wonders of the Vatican, baroque fountains and beautiful piazzas, amazing food, people, and fantastic shopping.
Oh my goodness, I love Rome. There's just something about it. It's been there for so long. What do you think of the absolute must-sees?
I think definitely the Colosseum, the Roman Forums, my favourite, the Vatican Museum, St. Peter's. What about you? What do you...
I love the Pantheon. It's just, to me, it's amazing. Piazza Navona, the fountains, Trevi Fountain, and the Spanish Steps.
I think that there's so many places that we could go on and on about. I've been there probably 10, 15 times into Rome, and every time I find something different. So I think what today's about is just really focusing on those 5 or 6 places that we think are a must-see.
Yeah, I think so. I think, if it's your first time to Rome, you can easily get overwhelmed with what are the, all the different places that you can go and see. And there's definitely more places than what we're going to talk about today. And you'll probably find them just by accident, actually, as you explore. However, I think it's a good starting point for any first trip to Rome, or even if you're visiting after a few, you haven't been back for a while, of where you want to start and those highlights that you want to see, and also how long it's going to take to explore each one. And that does depend a bit on your level of interest in those areas, but it also, there's also a minimum amount of time that you probably want to spend in those areas.
Oh, totally agree. And also, if you start with the Colosseum, do you do it at night or do you do it at day? So I think there's some really great, information that we can sort of help you. I haven't done it at night, but I have walked past it at night. But then I know that you've done a night tour of the Colosseum. So I think, again, we're here to just sort of give you some overviews of some of the amazing places. And as you walk through in your experience, it's not just the Colosseum or the Roman Forums, it's the gelato shop that you're going to come past, or you're going to find another fountain that you didn't even know existed, or I think every time you step past something in Rome, you will find something.
Oh, I know. That's why it's so amazing. Anyway, first things first,
yes.
Let's talk about Colosseum and the Roman Forum and Palatine Hill. So I think, for me, this is like the most amazing part of Rome. There you are, standing in the spot where 2,000 years ago these buildings were built, and they've stood the test of time. And it's just one of those amazing places that you kind of pinch yourself, I think, when you see them.
Yeah, I agree. Working out that when you're standing in the Colosseum even, that's where the gladiators and then you go through the history of how that happened and how they were fighting each other with wild animals. And when you do the tour of the Colosseum, you actually learn more about it, and the size is so impressive, and actually how much it's actually still standing, I think is amazing as well.
I know, it's incredible. Do you think about the buildings that we have today and whether they're going to stand for 2,000 years? And I would say probably not. I don't know. These buildings were built to last, and they represent a time and a place that is just so, I guess, long ago, but has made such a big impact on our society these days. And it's actually a really big area, isn't it? It's quite surprising. You get a bit sort of like, whoa, this is a huge area to explore.
I think that, yeah, and I think it also takes you back to when you sit down. I mean, both of us have studied Shakespeare as well, and we could imagine where Shakespeare could imagine where Mark Antony made his great speech, imploring the citizens of Rome to support him. So you can actually see that happening there. And I think if you go through all the movies and things, you can actually, I don't know, sometimes you can even, I could imagine the people coming into there and the actual feeling of how Rome would have been back in that time, and how our imagination and how a lot of our stories have come from there.
Yes, the Mark Antony speech is obviously fictional, but you can really imagine the friends, Romans, countrymen speech playing out in that setting. But it's, it's so evocative, and you can see these columns rising up, into the sky, and the Colosseum sort of dominating that area as well. But it, unfortunately, went into ruin in the Middle Ages, but still miraculously stood the test of time. So I think it's a real testament to the power of that empire that stretched all the way, to the north in England and to the east in Turkey and beyond. Just this huge, powerful force of empire that has been so important to the development of our society today. And that's why I love to visit the Colosseum. I think it's easily one of the most important sites in Italy, if not the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think, being over 2,000 years old, just the sheer nature of it. I think also going back to how they built it, I think it's amazing. How many people did it take to build that? How long did it take to build it? So I definitely think that is something that you could spend. We went in early in the morning because we found that it got really hot. In the middle of July and August, it gets really hot there because there's no cover at all.
No.
So we found that we went really early in the morning so that we could walk around. We also had met some friends that had 2 little boys, probably your kids' age, actually, Katie, and they ran around. They loved it, and they were really, when you tell the stories and you have all of that, I think it's really, when we look at the type of ages that it really goes through and who would be interested, it's really all ages, because you can actually tell some great stories.
That's exactly right. And I think the minimum time that you'd want to allocate in that area is around, I wouldn't do it in really under 2 hours. No. You can't really see it. So you need to allocate at least 2 to 3 hours. And if you don't have skip the line tickets, you're probably going to need to wait quite a long time as well, actually. So we would really advise you to get skip the line tickets for the Colosseum, if not a tour. So the minimum I would say is skip the line tickets.
And do you pre-book that before you leave, or is that something that you do when I'm a bit of a pre-booker, but I know different people do different things. What do you prefer?
Well, if you want a specific time, then you really should pre-book as early as possible. The official site tickets open around 60 to 90 days in advance, and I'd really recommend jumping on and securing the times that you want. Like you mentioned, if you want to go earlier in the day, they're the ones that go quickly, especially for the summer visits, because it is much cooler during the morning. So, yeah, definitely get on and do that as soon as you can. And it's getting, 30,000 people visit the Colosseum every day.
Wow.
It's one of the most popular sites in the world. So they do, for safety reasons mainly, is really stagger the entries. So it's a real supply and demand situation. If you want the early tickets or you want the most popular times, make sure to book in advance.
Yeah, great idea. So the other place that we do have to talk about, which is one of my favourites, is the Vatican Museum in St. Peter's. I think for me, I have been, as I said, many, many times, and every time I go, I find something else. Around this one, I've done a couple of walking tours, so I find that for me, because I really want to get into the history, I did the one where we went to the top of the Vatican and also down into the crypts as well, because I wanted to know the history of that. So for me, I mean, that is a very sacred place, being Catholic, and something that I've absolutely love. I go early in the morning again there. Also skip the line, try to get in before, because the crowd's there. What have you experienced?
Well, I think it's a really important to let people know that the Vatican is really a big complex of different, I don't want to say attractions, but different sites where you can go and visit. So the main ones that people will go and visit, and which you really should go and visit, is the Vatican museums, which includes the Sistine Chapel, and also St. Peter's. So they're 2 separate locations. So when people say the Vatican, it's sometimes a little bit confusing because they sort of lump it all into one, but it's actually 2 separate locations, and you can visit them separately or you can visit them sequentially or, whatever. So for me, the Vatican museums are absolutely incredible. Like, this is the world's biggest collection of art. It's incredible. Like, you've got all the masters there, Michelangelo, Raphael, all the Renaissance masters, and sculptures, paintings, just the incredible maps in the map room. It is it is one of the best museums in the world to go see art, basically.
Oh, 100%. And once you've done all of that and then you walk through and you come into the Sistine Chapel is absolutely glorious. I have to say, just standing there looking up, but as you said, Katie, every bit of art, everything that they've done, how they've positioned it, the art is amazing. And as you said, Renaissance, Michelangelo, everything that we've read, heard, if you're into art, I think it's the place to go. And then when you walk into that Sistine Chapel, there's nothing like it, really.
Oh, yes, it's so, so beautiful. We had 20 minutes in there about a month ago, and it was not enough. I mean, the detail and the beauty and the characters and humour of the Sistine Chapel is something that you'll never forget, and you can just sit there for hours just looking at that painting and that room. Just magnificent. So, look, I find the Vatican museums incredibly amazing, and you should definitely sort of you can't really see anything in that in under 2 hours, really.
No,
there are tours
absolutely.
that offer a fast track through the Vatican museums, but you're going to kind of be walking the whole time and not really taking too much in. So that's really one area. So the other, so once you reach the Sistine Chapel, and you know, I don't know about you, but I actually find museums like that, even as much as I love art and culture, I find it a little bit overwhelming, to be honest. Like I get a kind of a brain, you know, like overwhelming sensation, because it's just so beautiful and so detailed, and there's so much history behind all of it. So I usually need to take a break, but you can actually go straight through into St. Peter's, which is the basilica that dominates the skyline in Rome, and it is the largest church in the world, and there's wonderful paintings and sculptures inside for you to go and explore as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I'm really into understanding the history behind it. So I like to walk through. So by the time I finish coming out of the Sistine Chapel, and I think that's why I've gone 3 or 4 times, because every time you go and every tour I've taken, I've heard something different. So you're right, it gets overwhelming. And as you go into that courtyard just outside of the Sistine Chapel, you sort of have to take that moment, I think. And if you go early in the morning, I think you just need that. You close your eyes and you just have to be present for that moment. I think that's really important. And going through to the church, and then, you know, to have that feeling of there more art, I think you have to stop. I'm a really big person about stopping, closing my eyes and just picturing it again. And as I do it now, I can see the people, the places. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. So you know, St. Peter's itself, like you mentioned before, it's the church with all the sculptures of Michelangelo's Pieta, the beautiful dome that you can go up and see and climb up the dome. So you can do that, and you can also go down into the crypts. And there's even, you can literally spend a whole day in the Vatican exploring both of those locations plus the Vatican Gardens. So when you're planning your trip, I think you need to at least allocate half a day to the Vatican museums.
I agree.
And
totally.
St. Peter's. Yeah. So make sure that you don't underestimate that. If you don't go with a tour, you can be spending a lot of time in queues. Similarly to the Colosseum, there's upwards of 30,000 people visit that location a day as well. Unfortunately, that's not a wide open space like the Colosseum. So if you do not go early, you're going to be in a crowd, and it can actually get quite unpleasant. So my recommendation is to grab a tour that leaves early in the morning. And the 2 companies that we recommend to do that with, apart from the Vatican Museum's official tours, is Walks of Italy and the Roman Guy, or the Tour Guy. And they run wonderful tours, and they make sure that you see all the highlights of those places. But it's definitely worthwhile paying that little bit extra to go early in the morning, because I've got a video actually on my Facebook group of me walking through the Hall of Maps just on my own, and it's kind of unheard of these days. So if you want to really appreciate what's going on around you, please go early, because it can be very, very busy and very hot in summer, because there's no air conditioning except in the Sistine Chapel.
The other thing I think I would also note too, for those of you who would want to see the Pope, get online and check for his audience. He does a mass. I believe it's on a Wednesday, so just double check that. At time of us doing this, it may change. Also, he does go to his summer residence in the summer period, so he may not be in residence and may not do the mass at the time. We found that when we were there, we also had different things going on. So just if you are wanting to go and you're wanting to spend time, just make sure that you investigate what is going on at the Vatican, because they can have different events going on during the time that you're there.
Yeah, we'll put a link to the calendar for the Vatican museums in this show notes as well. But it's a really good point, Josie, because even if you wanted to go see the Pope, then you need to, Wednesday may not be the best time to visit the Vatican museums either, because it can get very crowded in there as well. So I think the best time to visit is probably on a Tuesday, because the visiting people from Europe who come for the weekend have probably gone home, and then it's probably the least amount of people. I would recommend going on a Tuesday, and also going very early in the morning. So if you, like we mentioned, if you want to go to the Vatican museums, and really it's one of those things you've got to do at least once in your lifetime. I think it's absolutely incredible, and I always go back, actually. It's one of the things that I like to do. One thing I didn't do was take my children.
Oh, okay, because you think it's too much.
Yeah, I think too much for 4-year-olds, and I probably wouldn't visit the Vatican museums until they're about 10, I would say, because there's a lot of priceless art there. You don't want to be the parents with the kids destroying the priceless art. Not just joking. I mean, some kids can definitely handle it. You know your kids best. I just don't think my kids would go too well in there. You can actually take them to the St. Peter's, though. I think that's fine. It's a big open space, and unless there's a service going on at the time, it's one of those things you can get in and out pretty quickly and have a look around, and it's well worth going as a family.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. So the next ancient ruins that we should really talk about is the Pantheon.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is my favourite. I just love the fact that you're just wandering through the Centro Storico, the old district of Rome, and you're going down these windy, narrow, cobbled streets, and there is suddenly the Pantheon just rising up with its magnificent dome, and it's been standing there intact for 2,000 years. I find it just incredible. I love it. I think it's just one of those remarkable, iconic sites in Rome that you absolutely cannot miss, and it's free.
Yeah, I think it's the most preserved. I think when you walk around and you're just looking at it and you go, how did they preserve it? I think it's definitely the most preserved building that they have in Rome, other than obviously the Vatican and all of that. It's the most influential building of ancient Rome that was ever built. I think it was dedicated to the pagan gods of Rome. And it's still there. I think when you walk around, I must say, it's a little bit, I remember walking past it and I'm like, where am I? Because we were sort of a little bit lost as we walked through. And we got up into the steps and then you realise when you've gotten there how amazing it is, and then you've realised exactly where you are.
Yeah, right. So those columns that are sort of facing out into the piazza, and you walk into the Pantheon and it's got that huge dome and the oculus, which is the open air eye that lets sunlight into. It's the only way that sunlight's let into the Pantheon. So it's quite a remarkable thing to see. And if it's a little bit drizzly or rainy, you can see the rain coming through the roof. It's quite amazing. And it's obviously now a church, so it's a working church, so services do happen there. So it's completely round inside, right? So you can walk around and just admire the paintings on the wall and just the beauty of the architecture that's been around for so long.
And I think also where it's situated, I think it's sort of in a central area. There's lots of cafes and places that you can actually sit. You can sit around in the courtyard. So there's lots of, it's a place that you just come across and you actually have a moment and really enjoy it. The actual building is remarkable. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, standing on the standing near the fountain that's just out the front, it's just like one of those pinch yourself moments that I love in Rome. And I just think you just go, oh my goodness, like this is so different to my life in a country that's quite modern, and it's just one of those amazing feelings that you get that this place has stood for like hundreds and hundreds of years.
For those of you who really like a photo opportunity, I think standing where the fountain is, with your back to the Pantheon, I think it's really a great photo because you get yourself and then the look through, and it's an amazing. It's one of those as you said, a pinch yourself moment, because how can you be there? So again, how long do you think? I love sitting there. So for me, and just taking it in and soaking it in on a beautiful day.
Yeah, sure. But I think if you want to go inside and look inside, it's no more than about 30 minutes, because it's really quite a simple church inside, apart from the beautiful architecture that's around. You can do a tour there, but it's and a lot of walking tours take you through that area in the Pantheon, but it's not necessary. You can go in there, and I just pop in and just like every time I'm in Rome, because to me it's just so special. I love the Pantheon.
I think something you just said, you pop in, you're right. As we walk, I do a bit of that. So you're walking to somewhere, so you might be walking from or to the Colosseum, and you sort of do the road that may go past there, and you might pop in 2 or 3 times while you're walking past it, because every time you go past, you go, oh, I'm going to go have another look, and every time you go, you see something different. So I am definitely, the minute you walk past it, you just go, it's that aha moment. You just stand there, and I think every time you walk through that area is amazing.
It really is. And so not far from the Pantheon is the Fontana di Trevi, the Trevi Fountain, which is a real symbol of Rome as well. And it's just, like really, why don't they build fountains like that anymore?
I don't know. It's amazing. Been there a few times. A couple of times it's been closed when I went because they were cleaning it, and then I went back the following year. It was all open and clean and white and amazing. And you're right, another aha moment, right? And how do you get through there? You wind through the streets, you go through, and all of a sudden it's there.
Yeah, and it's just this huge monumental fountain, and it's an 18th century fountain, and it's one of 3,000 fountains in Rome. Like, not all of them are working, but this is like one of the most grandest, beautiful fountains made of marble and with water gushing all over it. I mean, it is not subtle, is it? It's just one of those, really, in your face, gorgeous things. And it's, you can see photos of it on the internet, and it just doesn't do it any justice. It's just one of those amazing structures, really, that is known the world over.
I agree, and I think there's a lot of people that go, so do not be shocked when you get there. But I have seen on your Facebook page, Katie, that a lot of people like to go at that 5-6 o'clock in the morning. I'm not an early person, but I do admire the photos that they've put on.
Yeah, I think if you really want to get those photos, you need to go early. It does get very, 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 very busy there, and it doesn't matter what time of year it is. Everyone wants to go to the Trevi Fountain and get their photo and throw their coin in, because it's one of those places. It's got a bit of a mythology attached to it. If you toss your coin into the fountain, the Trevi Fountain, then it'll guarantee your return to Rome. And I don't know. I don't want to mess with that chance, really. So I'm always throwing the coin in.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely I always go. It's just the one place, I think, in Rome that you go, you see. But as you're walking through, again, you go from one part to the other, and it just, I don't know. I seem to be always attracted that I go that road, because they're the 3 roads into the Trevi.
Yeah.
So I always seem to end up in one of those roads to get me into the Trevi. So, which is amazing. Also interesting about the money that's what we throw in, so that we hope we come back to Rome.
Yeah, it's so good that they do this. I think so. They collect about €3,000 a day from the money that gets thrown into the Trevi Fountain, and the good news about that is it's donated to the city's homeless to help, relieve some of the pressure on the homeless people in Rome. And I think that's a lovely gesture, and it, to me, it makes it makes it even more special.
Yeah, definitely. That is definitely a place to go. I think the other place to really go, which is another one of my favourites, have you heard? I pretty much like everything in Rome, but Piazza di Spagna and the Spanish Steps is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's 135 steps from Piazza di Spagna to the Chiesa della Trinità de Monti, and it's, you know, another one of those iconic places in Rome. And I guess at the base of the steps, you've got the Trevi Fountain, the sinking boat fountain, and it's just, you know, it's just beautiful, and people mill around there, and it's just got a great atmosphere, hasn't it?
Oh, I love it. We go there. For those of you who like to shop, that's my favourite area too. But yeah, you mill around. They are moving people. You can sit on the steps. I've heard that they're now moving people on that you can't actually sit. No. You can definitely take your photo and walk up and down, but you cannot sit on the steps anymore.
No. And there's a few new rules around that. So unfortunately, some people have been very disrespectful of the fountains and attractions in Rome. So you need to be aware of that. You're not allowed to sit on the Spanish Steps, and you will be moved on and or fined, unfortunately, if you do that. But, you know, just please take a time and moment, climb the stairs, get the views from the top. It's just incredible.
I think it's something that we do need to discuss is the respect of these places, and making sure that you know, we keep them for a longer time. So it's up to us, because we are traveling, and we are a lot of us traveling to different places of the world, and I think it's just the respect, and they want to keep them, because I was there a couple of years ago when that actually closed them to clean them, and so I'd seen them, I'm going to say, dirty, and then now they opened them, I think last year, and they were white and clean and pristine. So I think it's just around the keeping the beauty of what they've got.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are treasures that have been there for hundreds of years. So you want, you know, I want my grandchildren and their grandchildren to see these beautiful places. So it's up to us to keep it clean and to respect the culture and the laws in Rome. But just in terms of that Piazza di Spagna, I mean, there's cafes, and as Josie said, her favourite shops. What's the street, the shopping street? I know you'll know that. Via Condotti?
Via Condotti.
Yeah.
And so down Via Condotti, you would have all of there's a bar there that if you go in and have a coffee there that's been there for 100 years. So you've got all the great designers, but it's just the atmosphere that the road is closed. Everyone walks up and down. It is absolutely, the atmosphere there is nothing like we've ever experienced.
No, it's completely different. And that comes back to the culture that we want to help preserve, right? So that both of those two places, the Trevi Fountain and Piazza di Spagna and the Spanish Steps, so probably you can spend a minimum of half an hour there, but you'll probably want to spend more because of that atmosphere and how you feel when you're exploring those areas. It's beautiful. It's different. It's not like your home. And to me, they're two places that make Rome very, very special. And I think it's those, like we've talked about the key highlights of Rome, but for me, it's not just those places. You can tick them off your list and do that, but for me, it's the getting to and from those places, and as you walk around and you explore, that's where you get the best experiences in Rome. And, you know, I think an experience is definitely part of the highlights of Rome.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and as we say, we're giving you just sort of a taste of the couple of really fundamental places you should go, but as you walk from the Trevi Fountain through to the Spanish Steps, you're going to experience different things. And I think really the fundamental thing that we're talking about here, Katie, is really enjoy. Enjoy the people, enjoy the food, the smells, the experience. Watch the people of Rome. They're amazing. And just enjoy every moment that you're there.
Yeah, exactly. So when you go to the Colosseum or the Vatican museums, you're going to see so many things along the way, and just take that time to soak it all up and enjoy the experience. So you've got to go see these places, but in the end, that's probably the feeling, and hopefully we've got that across. It's that sense of wonder